This week, SCG takes a slightly different tack. In this, our inaugural episode of SCG Meets Your Maker, our regular video essay, typically a deep dive and critique of a game's content, structure, mechanics, etc., will be replaced by the story behind the story of one game. Originally created as a Flash application in 2012, Frog Fractions has gathered upwards of 2 million players. The game intrigued people with its nostalgic home computer graphics and gaming mechanics. 2020, when Flash's looming demise is making way for a shaky HTML5 JavaScript duo, its author, who goes by the moniker Twinbeard, released a port of the entire game on a modern framework, Unity, to make sure its charms stay available to current and new fans. So what does it take to bring a passion project made with a small group of friends from ActionScript onto a current platform? Let's find out. Now, before we dig too deeply into the making of the game itself, we'll give a spoiler-free mini-review of its structure and basic mechanics. Frog Fractions Game of the Decade Edition is presented as a loosely coupled chain of late 80s, early 90s home computer game pastiches. A non-exhaustive list includes homages to the Colossal Cave, Infocom, Scott Adams text-based adventures, Sinistar, Asteroids, and Hammurabi-style city management. For example, your frog avatar begins the game on a pond, where your goal, in true Missile Command fashion, is to protect fruit from incoming bugs. In between rounds, you'll have the opportunity to purchase tongue and mobility upgrades. After a certain point, and in a manner I won't reveal, the true story actually begins. Shigeru Miyamoto famously once said that the thrill of discovery was the cornerstone of his design philosophy. He laughingly recalled setting buckets of water over doors to trick people as a child and wanted to maintain that sense of playful surprise in his games. That message was received by a middle school gamer in the 1980s who was enthralled with the mysterious worlds and rule sets presented in games of the time. In his own words, Twinbeard explains, "You would hear rumors of a friend shooting the dog in Duck Hunt and getting Samus to take her clothes off in Metroid. And you'd dismiss the stories as unlikely, but there was always the tickle of possibility in the back of your mind, because of that one time Dave showed you how to warp to an otherwise inaccessible level in Super Mario Bros. This mindset gave every game enormous cachet, with no effort on the part of the developer. Even a bad game can still be a good, fun mystery." And to be sure, as the internet wasn't yet a factor, rumors of hidden game content and obscure quirks were primarily spread by word of mouth and to a lesser but more sanitized extent magazines. It was with these hidden aspects he was enamored. As the years passed and gaming continued to become more mainstream, publicity and marketing and the prevalence of spoilers destroyed that sense of discovery. The author explains, marketing had destroyed any sense of mystery. You know everything important about how a game plays by looking at trailers, and after release, if you have any remaining questions, you can buy the strategy guide. Frog Fractions was in part a reaction to that, and it really resonated with people. For a while, it was the poster child for bringing mystery and surprise back to video games. With that in mind, he introduced Frog Fractions as an ActionScript title with minimal fanfare in 2012, where it struck a chord with many gamers, gathering over 2 million plays, and soon gave birth to many of its own fan theories and gossip. It seemed the beloved game would last forever. But technology changes rapidly over time, and as Flash fell into disuse and distrust, the game's future seemed bleak. Fortunately, Twinbeard decided that his next labor of love would be to bring it to a modern framework and preserve it for future generations. He added, "Flash was wonderful back when it was still a thing. A solid 2D game API, frictionless delivery, and the, seemingly at the time, promise that your game would still run a decade later. HTML5 has the frictionless delivery, but as a game API, it's years behind where Flash was in the mid-aughts. And I'd still expect any given browser update to break things." The quest for modernization began by looking at options where code could simply be reused as it stood, such as utilizing runtime wrappers that could interpret the shockwave format. None provided the plain path to value that he'd hoped for. He worked tirelessly for several months while juggling many of life's pressures, painstakingly rasterizing vector graphics into 4K, supporting newer widescreen aspects, and laboriously converting scripting and logic components to run under Unity, And with a little help from his friends, the game was finally ready to be revealed to the world. The game was released on Steam and itch.io in the summer of 2020, ready to be appreciated by the next generation of gamers. Fans of the original story will certainly want to pick it up, not just to support the author, but to enjoy once again the surprise that they fell in love with the first time. Frog Fraction's author describes it as a game that pretends to be an educational game, but actually it's a roller coaster ride through a bunch of game genres of the 80s and 90s. I'd call it a nostalgic throwback to a simpler time, a callback to the discovery and wonder of childhood. It's a game of surprises that brings comfort to the author as he's grown, and I'd imagine he hopes it kindles or rekindles the same senses in you. Frog Fractions was developed and published by Twinbeard. It's currently available for free on the Steam store as well as itch.io, alongside its first piece of DLC that unlocks very significant and surprising content. For the low cost of free, it's well worth a spin, and if you enjoyed it, you'll definitely enjoy the DLC. So that's our Frog Fractions episode of SCG Meets Your Maker. If you played it, what was your experience? Would you like to see us do more interview-style videos? Please leave a comment below and let us know. Also, feel free to add any questions or suggestions. And please consider liking this video, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell. It would be greatly appreciated and really helps a lot. Thanks for watching.